My name is Chris Manley. I'm from a dairy, beef and sheep farm in East Devon, and firstly I have to say it's quite refreshing to see such a youthful audience at a conference. It's absolutely brilliant, and what all the panellists have said has been fantastic. It's been sort of music to my ears. The one point that really hasn't been brought up, I feel, is succession. I think succession is one of the biggest fundamental issues in agriculture as we find it at the moment, and whether that be on farm, if you're lucky enough to have your own family farm and trying to make headway that way in the relationship with the rest of your family, or also if you're budding agriculturalists and looking for that opportunity to actually get some land and sort of the issues with availability of capital and that kind of thing. I open this up to the whole panel. Do you have any advice for us in the audience of how we can make progress in agriculture?
Well, I don't know. I'll start off. I mean, you hit on probably the challenge that agriculture faced when I left university, and 30 years on is still probably, if you like, the elephant in the room. And one of the things that I urge you all to do is to think laterally, that there are some great examples of how people have started with very little capital and they've worked in partnership with somebody and they've built up a stake in that business, and eventually they've taken over the running of that particular business. You know, I have a late grandmother who used to say, you don't have to own the apple tree in order to enjoy the apples. It's a very, very wise piece of advice. So what's right for one person in this room will be very different for somebody else. But think laterally. You know, if we sat here today and whinged about tenancy law or taxation or any of the other things that normally get wheeled out, actually the one thing we would stop is the bright idea that will come from all of you. And that's why I deliberately kept away from it. So I applaud what you've said, but think laterally about how you do it.
And look around the world too.
And look around the world.
Yeah. Look at dairying in New Zealand and how dynamic that's been in terms of those who sort of work their way into farm ownership. It's stunning. And yet, in our particular case in Europe, we shackled ourselves with a policy environment which ensured that it was almost impossible to get new blood into the industry because at one stage, because of the cost of quota, sometimes we bring it on our own head.
For me, a lot of it's about risk. As I gave as an example, investing in land is very risky. I think an easier way in where you have a lower risk is in the contracting market. It's an easier way in. My thought, and I'm lucky that my father didn't run the farm, but if the main reason that a lot of people won't hand down is because they haven't financially sorted themselves and can't move away. You have to find a way of keeping everyone happy, if that makes sense. If you have a good business model, you probably find that your parents have a good pension and therefore they can justify moving away. It's when the business has been run poorly that the problems start. And I think it's a very difficult thing to get out of. I've been asked many times what I would do. My children are 7 and 6. If they both came back to the farm, I would gulp, because the farm is a very good business for me to hand on to one of them, but it doesn't have the scale at the moment to hand it on to 2 of them. And I would have to have some entertaining thoughts of how I would manage that. But I, as I think the others have said, think outside the box.
Can I just say one more?
Yeah, Alan, just one comment.
And that's exactly why I'm here and not on the farm. I'm the oldest, but my brother's got the farm, and I'll tell you what, he's happy and I'm happy. So you know, it's what you make of it.
Thank you. A very, very pertinent comment, the last one indeed. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I think all it does for me is to ask you to show your appreciation to the 3 speakers, David, Alan and Adrian. I think they've been incredibly thought-provoking. I think they've been incredibly challenging. I feel there are a number of issues that they've raised already through all 3 presentations that we need to be aware of. Consumers, strengthening the supply chain, volatility in markets, all that will impact on the future of livestock production. I'll sum up in more detail at the end of the day, but I just want you to think as we go through the rest of the day, the same themes that are coming through all 3 presentations. So please join me in thanking our speakers so far today. late. So lunch is served out in the foyer